Hey everyone, Joshua Kirk here once again. Now it's time for episode 157 of Album of the Day, and before I get into the review, just want to, say, I wish you all a happy Memorial Day weekend, and whatnot. Anyway, let's get on to the review. Which today I'm going to talk about a band from Dallas, Texas, who has been around since 1993, and since then has been a pretty pivotal part of the alternative country movement of the 90s and the 2000s. And of course, I'm talking about the band, the quartet known as the Old 97s, which I have reviewed a few of their albums here on my channel, stuff like that, because I'm a pretty big fan of their work and stuff like that. I've actually excuse me. I've actually reviewed over 4 albums of theirs on my YouTube channel. I did Blame It on Gravity, Wreck Your Life, Most Messed Up, and Drag It Up. And today I'm gonna do their latest album, which just came out on February the 24th, 2017. The album is called Graveyard Whistling, and as you can see, this is a CD copy of it over here. Excuse me. Which this album did also have, a pretty interesting concept for the vinyl release. The vinyl of this record, there are over 4 different packaging colors for the vinyl of this record. So there's blue, like the CD, as well as red, gray, and green, which I do think is pretty cool. But as you can see, I just have the CD. There's the band on the back, and this is their second LP for ATO Records, independent record label, founded by Dave Matthews, and is currently the label for artists like Alabama Shakes and people like that. And there's the inside. There's photos of the band recording in the studio. Some artwork here, pretty cool, serene artwork of trees and whatnot with the really nice blue color. There's the liner notes for the writing and personnel and production and thank yous, all the stuff you need to know. And in here, these are the lyrics over here. 11 songs over 42 minutes in length. Excuse me. And anyway, there's the CD. So yeah, this is the packaging for Graveyard Whistling, the new album from Old 97s. Now this, Old 97s, it's pretty rare for a band to still put out strong records more than 20 years into their career. But Old 97s are certainly one of them, and they've sort of been going back to their roots for their last couple of records. Most Messed Up sounded a lot like Wreck Your Life. This one, I think, sounds more like Too Far to Care a little bit. But, it doesn't just sound like a, part 2 of Too Far to Care. It still sounds pretty different from this record. But, on this record, Old 97s prove that they're still relevant as one of the greatest alternative country bands of all time. That's why I'm such a huge fan of their work. I mean, they've barely put out a bad album. They're usually pretty consistent with every album they release. Graveyard Whistling is no exception. Anyway, I'm going to go straight into the track list here, opening with, an amazing opener, I Don't Want to Die in This Town, which this album actually has the most co-writers that I've seen on an Old 97s album. This one, Rhett Miller co-wrote with Salim Nirala, who produced the last few records. And it's kind of a song where you may not realize it on first listen, but a few listens later, you kind of realize how dark the song is lyrically. Where the opening verse kind of depicts a crime scene, where the protagonist has obviously been drinking a little too much, and also like kind of gets into a coma, and then wakes up to see this situation that he didn't mean to happen, but for whatever reason he just realizes that him and his friends may have gone a little too far, pretty much. And then, of course, it builds into this amazing cathartic chorus, with Philip Peoples, the drummer, just he's a total madman on the drums on this one, and then of course Ken puts on some pretty sick guitar on the track, especially during that solo, which also has a pretty nice touch of howling theremin in the background, provided by Fats Kaplan. Um, Excuse me. Of course, there's Rhett's very passionate vocal delivery, and Murray's very gorgeous backup vocals to back it up. It's just a great opener for the record. Some of the album's singles include, the lead single here is the song "Good with God" featuring Brandi Carlile. The first time in over 2 decades, that the band has actually had a duet on one of their records. The last time was on Too Far to Care, a re-recorded version of Four Leaf Clover from their first record, featuring Exing Cervenka from the band X. That was a great duet, and Good with God doesn't stray too far from that either. Of course, it's got all the things that a good old 97 song needs, like, Ken just, putting on that twangy sort of, almost kind of, desert type guitar line that, is definitely it's appropriate music to listen to when you're driving in your car in the middle of nowhere in a desert, like in the middle of Texas or something like that, which is where the band's from. And then, of course, Rhett goes into this reflection, kind of how, he's kind of got no regrets, pretty much, and he convinces himself he's good with God and stuff like that, but, he's just not really sure how God herself feels about him, and then eventually Brandi just comes in with, a pretty, with kind of a sourness in the second verse, sort of talking about how, you should be scared because I'm not so nice. And once her part comes in, the song is already fantastic with, all the usual things. But then once Brandi comes in, it just takes the song to the next level, which I love. And yeah, and this was co-written with Brandi as well. I'm going to have to check out some of her own work pretty much, but her work on this song is just, without her, amazing talents, the song would totally be lacking that extra little oomph, I think. And then, of course, a great chorus. It made sense as a single because it's also kind of catchy as well with, the riff and the chorus and whatnot. The second single is All Who Wonder, which is, not nearly as, punky, a little more on the, ballad, definitely more kind of in the ballad territory, but still an amazing track, beautiful song. Full song, beautiful chorus, Ken just absolutely, kills it in that solo, low as usual. And, right off the bat from the opening lyrics, you can tell that the narrator is sort of having a bit of, this sort of, introspection about himself. Like, I must live in this confusion. I must love to be confused. And stuff like that. And it's pretty much time to figure out exactly, what the hell he's doing, and he's sort of the line that pretty much sums it up is this: "All who wonder her are not lost, just me." Um, it's me. And of course, Rhett comes through with his amazing vocal delivery and whatnot. Um, excuse me. I'm going to talk about some of the other songs that I really like on here next, like deep cuts to be exact. I love one of my favorite tracks is the song "Jesus Loves You," which is Rhett Miller co-wrote it with Gaines Greer and Salim Nirala, and this track definitely does have some pretty, this definitely does show the old 97s. They're definitely, Rhett Miller is also definitely not only very poetic and very hard, could be very poetic and heartbreaking, but also he can be really clever. Like the song actually does have some pretty clever bars, with some pretty cool religious undertones and whatnot, sort of tying into he's kind of in a split decision with kind of this troubled relationship that he's in, pretty much, and then also and Ken, and backed up with definitely some of Ken, backed up with definitely some very unique, very skillful guitar playing from Ken. Some of his more melodic riffs show up on here, so he's actually very good at cranking out some amazing melodies too, with the guitar too. And then of course Philip's such an amazing drummer, and he puts on a pretty kick-ass solo towards the end. And that's only like about 10 seconds, but boy does it leave an impression on me. Um, on me. There's this, and then there's some Pogsy-esque rockers, like the song Bad Luck Charm, which was, has actually become one of my favorite songs on this record, co-written with Caitlin Rose. And of course, Caitlin Rose provides really gorgeous harmonies in the background of the song as well. Excuse me. But it's definitely got a bit of a bouncy Irish pub kind of feel going on, and Thats Kaplan, of course, does put on, an amazing pedal steel performance, on this song. It really does color the track. It still kind of lets you know that this band is from Texas, and alternative country is still pretty much, the kind of sound they specialize in. Pretty much. And Fats also does put on an amazing steel performance on All for Wonder that's really nice. A ballad similar to those of the song Salome off of Too Far to Care. Anyway, back to Bad Luck Charm. This is a song also dealing with kind of a troubled relationship, pretty much, and Rhett kind of realizing he's just nothing more than a bad luck charm to this significant other in his life. And then also there's Irish Whiskey Pretty Girls, which, definitely another one of my favorite songs on this record. I mean, this song is just a lot of fun. I mean, it's the kind of thing you can blast in an Irish pub and, while everyone's downing a cold one, and it definitely would make sense, because, its lyrics kind of make sense. After all these problems that Rhett has had, he just kind of wants to cut it loose and pretty much, and, at least stay up all night and drink and whatnot, and, and stuff like that. It's kind of a song sort of, which, the song does, again, does throw in definitely some very clever, lyrics in here as well. The main line is, thank God for Irish whiskey, thank the devil for pretty girls, be the death of all us lucky boys, and also sort of mentioning how, he never really was much for talking, and graveyard whistling's more his thing, and he's got 96 tears and only one wedding ring. I mean, that's some Rhett Miller poeticism right there. That line is, and that line does happen to be where the album's title, Graveyard Whistling, does come from. And, really nice album cover, by the way, and artwork here, and photos of the band, pretty much, with the very cool blue color on there. And also this song, another thing that I really do like about this song is all the different instrumental elements going on this song. I mean, it's obvious the band had lots of fun cutting this one in the studio. I mean, it's definitely, a little bit of a departure from the band's usual twangy sound. In fact, I mentioned that this song is definitely kind of like the Pogues, like Bad Luck Charm, and I think this one is even more so inspired by the Pogues. Pogues, not just because of its lyrics about drinking and whatnot, but also like its elements. Like Fats Kaplan puts on some pretty sweet fiddle on the track, but then there's also like some banjo, some mandolin, some accordion, and even the Jew's Heart pops up in the outro, which is kind of like this big cinematic, boozy, epic sort of outro with these booming bass drums and huge backup vocals. That backup vocals pretty much. I mean, I'm very sure the band probably did, drink a little before, cutting that track as well. Anyway, there's the song She Hates Everybody, which, is another pretty clever and humorous song lyrically, and it was, this is another song on the record co-written with Silly Narella, and, it's definitely, pretty interesting tale about, this guy that's in love with this girl that, obviously hates everyone except him, pretty much. And, he's sort of, and that sort of leads, him to, and at first he's like, kind of, kind of overtaken by, like, her love and whatnot. But then eventually, he kind of gets a little anxious and fears that maybe this person is going to turn on him eventually, and she's going to hate him as well. So, like, there's lyrics about, like, she, like, he, how it was so hard to win her heart. It's so hard except for one little part, and that's why I don't sleep so easily. And, like, also bringing up imagery of, he's feeling this way, but then he turns on the light and sees her, as sleeping, as sweet as she can be. And also, I do like the song's kind of loungy kind of vibe going on with the piano and the pedal steel and, the twangy guitars as well. The song Nobody is the one track on here where Murray sings lead vocals, in which that's kind of a tradition that the band has had for pretty much where Murray sings on at least one song for every album. This is the one, and Nobody is certainly the one here on Graveyard Whistling. On this track, Murray's vocals are kind of more recorded in kind of the lo-fi territory, but still really do add that little oomph to the song, like to the story, which, would have lacked otherwise. Which, the song is, kind of a, storytelling song pretty much, and telling song pretty much, and bringing up some pretty clever, religious undertones to the lyrics, like, the desert children wanted bread, the good Lord set them manna. I asked for one good girl, but the devil sent me Juliana. As well as lyrics like, yesterday, rye bread and soup. Today was soup and rye. I asked my food, the soup just said Nobody. That's some poeticism right there. But then also I do like kind of the spaghetti western inspired instrumental on the song. Ken just, absolutely killing it on the guitar, and then there's also some pretty kick-ass use of the theremin, which is played by Fats Kaplan, which sounds as if it's connected to a guitar pedal actually on the song, giving it kind of this distorted, cool, squelchy kind of tone that I do really like a lot on this track. And then also Murray does throw in a little yodeling at the end, which kind of makes sense with kind of their Texas roots. And then following that, you get another pretty loud, boozy anthem with Drinking Song, co-written with Butch Walker, probably the most well-known, probably the biggest name in the co-writer department on this track. I mean, he's written for, countless, like just top artists like Fall Out Boy, Taylor Swift, and Keith Urban. But the song is definitely fantastic. This song is just a lot of fun. Philip, of course, just going nuts and just beating the crap out of his drum kit on the song, and Ken just letting it all loose on the guitars. Probably the loudest song on the record, probably. And I think this one maybe has a bit of a Pogsy vibe going on as well. And another song that's got some pretty funny lyrics on it, including lyrics about hearing a song by an old band that the narrator likes, and he liked it better than he thought he would. And this is and he's kind of had a terrible day, and kind of wants to let it all loose, but he says stuff like, "Don't put another sad record on." And Murray's vocals, and Rhett's vocals, a lot like Murray's vocals on the song "Nobody." They are kind of in the more lo-fi territory, but still he's just going nuts and just kind of but still he's just going nuts into the microphone pretty much. And then of course there is some there is some pretty cool gang vocals towards the end. Another really nice ballad is the song "Turns Out I'm Trouble," which definitely does show the band's skills as amazing ballad songwriters. That's for sure. And then it closes out with the song "Those Were the Days," which I do really like. I do really like the vignettes on the kind of alcohol induced vignettes on this song of ballroom dancing in an old folks home, and eating some Jello and taking some Vicodin, and all the people there think the narrator and his other were just crazy. And then also lyrics about drifting off into the galaxy pretty much, but honestly the song probably is my least favorite track on here. I mean, some of the lyrics in the chorus of pour a drink for the old, pour a drink for the new are just a little cliched in my opinion. And at first the do hook at the beginning, it can sound a little repetitive at first, but it definitely eventually does get catchy, and you kind of get used to it the more you hear it, and it kind of makes you want to sing along with it, which is nice. Ken does crank out some pretty amazing guitar work on the song, so it's not a bad song. I mean, I still like it, just kind of my least favorite here. But overall, the old 97s definitely do come through with yet another very good comeback. I mean, they were definitely on a roll with their last record, Most Messed Up, and while this record isn't necessarily better than Most Messed Up, and I will say that, I definitely do think, records like Wreck Your Life and Too Far to Care are still better, but I still definitely do, definitely still have to give it to the band. They did crank out yet another very strong record, and this is their 11th album. When's the last time someone's 11th album was this good? Good, just tell me. Anyway, that's my review for Graveyard Whistling, the new Old 97s album. I'll see you for episode 158.